We're going to talk first about the 3 games in the noon Eastern time window. We begin with maybe one of the most intriguing games of the week. The Northwestern Wildcats going on the road to Memorial Stadium, Lincoln, Nebraska, to take on the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Old Big Red, old Herbie Husker, 7.5-point favorites. The over-under sits at 43.5, Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern on FS1. This has been a very even series as of late. These two teams have alternated wins every single year since 2019. For those of you that love trends, Nebraska is the last one to win in this series, by the way. Good news for the Wildcats. We'll see. It's an even 5-5 in the last 10 meetings since 2014. 7 of these games, 7 of the last 10, have been one-possession ball games. Both teams are sitting at 5-2. But I think both teams feel a little bit different, don't they? Nebraska, of course, coming off that very disappointing 24-6 loss to Minnesota, whereas the Wildcats have won 4 in a row, and they're feeling pretty good right now. Northwestern, 3 straight Big Ten wins over UCLA, Penn State, and Purdue. So, Nebraska was ranked going into last week, and after that Friday night loss to Minnesota, if you're looking at the uniform, the purple, the Northwestern N, and you're maybe looking at a bunch of nerds over there at that other NU type of school, this is an opportunity for us to kind of get a get right type of game. Hey, Northwestern, they were a bad team last year. Yeah, last year was last year, and this year was this year. If you think that this is going to be that get-right game, you got another thing coming. Because this is a Northwestern team that is scrappy. This is a Northwestern team that is physical. And as I'm going to highlight here in this preview, this is a Northwestern team that can attack the weaknesses that were exposed last week by Minnesota in that game for the Cornhuskers. Now, where I want to start off, Nebraska was not good against the run. Matt Rule said it, and John Butler, the defensive coordinator, said they weren't really prepared for the physicality that Minnesota brought to them. Well, that's what Northwestern is going to bring to you. When you talk about what they've been able to do on the ground, they rushed for 232 last week against Purdue. That's 4.6 yards per carry. 199 against UCLA 3 weeks ago. Look, these aren't great teams. They're not great run defenses, but Northwestern is still putting up really good production on these lower-level defenses, maybe. They also rushed for 119 yards against Penn State. They just kept on leaning in that game that eventually got James Franklin fired. They've got a good combination. They've got a good trio. Even since losing Cam Porter earlier this season. Joseph Hyman, Caleb Kamalafe is that power guy between the tackles. Deshaun Reeder is a freshman that brings a lot of electricity to the table. And you could say that, too, about Joseph Hyman. So you have guys that can be a home run threat. You have guys that can kind of pound you between the tackles. You've got a variety of weapons in this Northwestern run game that can attack Nebraska the same way that Minnesota did. And Northwestern, they've got a big offensive line up front. They're 6th in the Big Ten. The Wildcats are in rushing offense. Nebraska gives up the 3rd most rushing yards in the Big Ten. Of course, 186 on the ground last week for Minnesota. So I think when I look at both of these teams as far as this type of situation that I'm laying out, run offense versus run defense, Nebraska, you got to find a way to buck up against the run game, because I think when you look at this Northwestern team, they can certainly run the football. They're not very dynamic when it comes to passing the ball. Preston Stone can be inconsistent. He's certainly better than what they had last year. I'll give him that. But outside of Griffin Wilde, this is a Northwestern passing attack that really can't hurt you too much down the field. And Nebraska's passing defense, I think, certainly holds the advantage in that respect. So whether it's bringing extra resources or whether it's just the defensive line and linebackers playing better football and being more prepared than they were last week, I don't care what it is. Nebraska needs to play better. Because if Northwestern can pound you and pound you and pound you, and if they can ride that run game, and all of a sudden you look up at the scoreboard and it's 14-13 in the fourth quarter, all of a sudden now Northwestern has to do it. They got to make a play here, they got to make a play there, they got to get a first down here, they got to get a stop there. Now it comes down to a couple of plays. Whereas Nebraska, you want to get them into a situation where it's 8 plays. It's 9 plays they need to make, because if Northwestern gets into that type of situation, I don't think that they're going to be very successful. So the Wildcats have to be physical, have to wear down the Huskers, I think, in order to be successful in this game. Now, that's one part that Minnesota exposed against Nebraska last week. The other part was the offensive tackles. Now, Michigan also exposed that early in the season, but here's the thing about Northwestern. They've got 2 guys coming off the edge that are honorable mention all Big Ten type of performers, Aiden Hubbard and Anto Saka. Saka, 5 pressures, 4 hurries, a sack. Last week against Purdue, 3 sacks this season. Hubbard in there with 2.5. And whether it's been Gunnar Gutola or Turner Corcoran, Elijah Pritchett, it doesn't matter. They've had trouble protecting the passer. So I'm really curious to see how Nebraska is going to adjust. Are they just going to rely on their tackles to play better? Are they going to bring in a tight end to chip? Or maybe are they going to do what they did against Maryland? Speed up that clock. Get rid of the football quicker. Get it to your weapons in space. Because once Dane Key, Naziah Hunter, Ja'Cory Barney, once these weapons for Nebraska get the ball in space against Northwestern, that's when they have the advantage. What you can't have is Dylan Raiola maybe not being as decisive or confident in the pocket like he was against Minnesota because of what they were able to do, where the Gophers got 9 sacks on Dylan Raiola. So I think the game plan for Dana Holgorsen could be get rid of the football quickly so you can kind of neutralize that pass rush. Another good way to do that is invest in the run game a little bit more with Emmett Johnson. I thought last week they could have ran the ball a little bit more to slow down the pass rush of Minnesota. So quick passes, a run game, I think could certainly help for the Huskers in this matchup. But it's not going to be easy. This is not going to be an easy bounce back. It's never an easy day in the Big Ten. Nebraska's got to be ready to go. I'm really curious, where Matt Rule said they weren't prepared last week. How prepared is Nebraska going to be this week? Because if you come out and you're not prepared, David Braun is a really good coach. This is a well-coached program, even though they certainly don't have the most talent in the world. Boy, this sounds familiar. This sounds exactly like a Pat Fitzgerald type of team, and I think David Braun is kind of the reincarnation of that on the field for Northwestern. So super intriguing matchup. If Nebraska can kind of shore up those 2 weaknesses, I think they can have a lot of success. But I don't see Nebraska just absolutely running away with this matchup. Next game, let's go to West Lafayette, Indiana. The Rutgers Scarlet Knights, 2.5-point favorites, by the way, going on the road to face the Purdue Boilermakers. The over-under is 58.5. That's Saturday noon Eastern over on the Big Ten Network. It's the 3rd all-time meeting between these 2 teams. They did not meet before the Big Ten era. Rutgers holds a 2-0 series lead with 1 possession wins in 2017 and the COVID year in 2020. Purdue has lost 5 straight after winning their first 2, but they've been competitive. I mentioned that give-a-damn factor from Barry Odom is certainly there. They had a 1-score game early in the 4th quarter against USC, and of course that lost 27-20 to Minnesota when they were up 10-0 early on a good Golden Gopher team. Rutgers, they've lost 4 in a row in Big Ten play since a 3-0 non-conference start, so somebody's got to get a win. Something's got to give as far as Big Ten play goes between these 2 teams. So if you want some okay, decent, maybe just maybe good offense against bad defense, you come to the right place when you watch Scarlet Knights and Boilermakers. Rutgers have given up 40 points per game against their Big Ten opponents. That's Iowa, Minnesota, Washington, and Oregon. Purdue has given up 35.6 points per game in their last 5. That's USC, Notre Dame, Illinois, Minnesota, and Northwestern. I think I got a lot of confidence that both teams are going to be able to move the ball on these defenses. But both offenses throughout this season have they've struggled to finish drives at time. Rutgers they got off to a good start against Iowa. They got off to a good start against Washington. And then as the game went on, they were able to move the ball towards midfield, sometimes into opponent's territory, but just were not able to really finish the job. They've got to be able to do that. Same with the Purdue Boilermakers in this game. We know Ethan Kaliakmanis, of course, he's playing better, probably playing his best football of his career, even though he certainly had some down points this year. Rutgers, there's maybe the overall issues and the cracks in the foundation have been masked because of how much better the pass game is in Piscataway, New Jersey, but it's still a unit that can move the ball down the field. You look to the other side for the Boilermakers. Ryan Brown has been the quarterback for them this season. He got hit hard, was taken out of the game against Northwestern. He practiced on Monday, but Barry Odom says it's not looking good. It's doubtful that he's going to be able to go. So that really puts the game into the hands of transfer quarterback Malachi Singleton. He was 11 of 20, 187 and a pick against Northwestern. That's what I talk about. He was able to put up, in relief, he was able to put up nearly 200 yards through the air, yet a goose egg 19-0 loss for Purdue against Northwestern. So these are the things that I'm talking about when I'm talking about finishing drives for both offenses. Now, Ryan Brown was certainly a guy that could scoot, certainly a guy that could use his legs to generate some offense, but we actually might see more from the quarterback run game with Singleton in there as opposed to Brown. Singleton was using kind of some sub-packages this season. Offensive coordinator Josh Henson says, quote, "There's more things we feel comfortable with him doing the quarterback run game than we do Ryan." So I think that certainly says something. That's a new wrinkle that, Purdue was going to be able to maybe save for some instances against this Rutgers defense. Rutgers gives up the most passing yards per game in the Big Ten, and here's the thing about Purdue. The Boilermakers have a variety of weapons out on the outside, and that's how you can attack a Rutgers passing defense that missed assignments, blown coverages, that kind of thing. When you overload the formation with guys that are legitimate targets, that can make things very difficult. You're looking at Michael Jackson, the leading receiver, the transfer from USC, 41 grabs, 390 and a score. Nitro Tuggle, 290, 3 touchdowns. He leads the team in that category. Corey Smith and Armand Branch are guys that both have 14 catches and 200-plus yards this season. So Purdue has been distributing the football to a variety of targets. And I think that's something that can really stress out Rutgers defensively. Now, both teams are pretty comparable running the ball. They're not great, but they're not bad. Right around 130 yards per game. Both teams, I think, have pretty good running backs. Antoine Raymond for the Scarlet Knights. Devin Mockabee out there for the Boilermakers. So it could come down to who can run the ball better, who can provide their offense with a little bit of balance and maybe relieve the pressure off of some of their quarterbacks right now. One thing to keep in mind about Rutgers, their tackles are not very athletic, so whether it's CJ Donali or whoever is coming off the edge on the other side for the Boilermakers, I think there could be some pressure, and once you get into the face of Athan Kaliak-Manis, he can kind of fold like a cheap tent sometimes. But Rutgers is the third best run-blocking unit according to PFF this year. Purdue, 104th. I tend to favor the Boilermakers in terms of their talent in the backfield, but Rutgers has been able to run the ball with Antoine Raymond as well. So if they can win that push up front, maybe they can have a little bit more time of possession to kind of help some people out. Rutgers, we talk about their defense, 134th out of 136 in coverage grade according to PFF. Purdue, a much more respectable 82nd. So for this game, to me, it kind of comes down to which offense is going to be able to finish more drives and which defense is going to suck the least. I know it's very blunt. It's kind of out there, but that's, I think, what it comes down to. Because I think there's going to be opportunities to move the ball down the field. Which team is going to come up with that stop when they absolutely need it? Which team can kind of keep the chains moving and get into the end zone more often instead of settling for field goals, I think is going to be the difference in these games. They're two very flawed teams, but sometimes you put two very flawed teams against each other on the football field, and that can make for an entertaining contest. And I think if you're looking for entertaining football, you might want to tune in to the Big Ten Network at noon Eastern. Okay, last game in the noontime window is the UCLA Bruins. Man, are they feeling good right now? They are the Cinderella story of the Big Ten right now. Going on the road, oh boy, to face the second-ranked Hoosiers, Indiana. 25.5-point favorites, the over-under 55.5. This is the Big Noon kickoff, Big Noon Saturday game, 12 p.m. Eastern on Fox. It is the second all-time meeting between these two. Indiana won at the Rose Bowl last year, 42-13, after scoring 14.2 points per game. In an 0-4 start, UCLA has completely flipped the script since Jerry Neuheisel has taken over as a play caller, 33.3 points per game since that point. Now, it's worth noting the Bruins played the 17th and 12th ranked defenses in the Big Ten over the last 2 weeks, and that 12th ranked defense held them to 20 points, and the Bruins committed 3 turnovers. So Maybe if you play a better defense, in Indiana's case, a much better defense. In Indiana's case, one of the top defenses not only in the Big Ten, but in all of college football, that's going to create a much more difficult time, I think, for UCLA. They have not faced a defense like Indiana. Nico, early on, when Deshaun Foster was still the head coach, he was turning the football over. He was not very good with his reads. I think certainly Jerry taking over and how they're kind of restructuring their offense has certainly helped them with this turnaround. But Indiana's a team. I mean, they confused Dante Moore when they played Oregon with a lot of simulated pressure showing something pre-snap versus showing something else post-snap. Indiana plays a lot of zone coverage. So Nico's got to be he's got to be certain, when getting the ball, Rico Flores to Quasi Gilmer to Titus down the field. So they gotta make sure to protect the football. If UCLA wants to have a chance to hang in this game, they can't let what Bryant Haynes is calling on the defensive side for Indiana really confuse them. And I think if I'm Indiana, I'm throwing a lot of stuff at Nico, knowing that he can maybe be a little bit turnover prone. 2 interceptions, as I said last week, against the Maryland Terrapins. Now, Nico was banged up late in that game against the Terps. He practiced on Tuesday. Concerns, I think, have been eased about him being ready to go. I would expect Imaliava to certainly play in this game. 5 interceptions this season for Nico. You look at the other side for Indiana. It's an interesting, dare I say, challenge. I think UCLA's secondary is pretty decent this season with Roderick Pleasant, the transfer from Oregon, leading the way. You've got Scooter Jackson, who had the interception late in that game against Maryland. They just had their best PFF coverage grade against a team in Maryland that kind of likes to throw the ball around. That's 90.7 as well. And Maryland threw the ball 48 times. Now, how are they going to fare against Elijah Surratt, who, outside of Jeremiah Smith, might be the best wide receiver in this conference right now? So, once again, like I said at the beginning, it's just a different challenge. It's a much different level of football that UCLA is facing, traveling 2 time zones in a 9 a.m. body clock game to take on Indiana. There's just a lot of challenges, I think, that are stepping up, and it's just a new level of football that UCLA now has to play up to compared to what they've been playing right now. I think Indiana is going to be the Dream Crushers. I think Curt Cignetti is going to crush this Cinderella story. That is UCLA in the game. The offense just presents way too many problems, I think, for UCLA's defense right now. I think the offensive line should be able to keep Fernando Mendoza very clean, because when you look at UCLA, they've got the second worst graded pass rush in the entire country this season. There's been a lot of UCLA that has flipped from, in these last handful of games. Pass rush hasn't really been that. They haven't really been able to generate a lot of pressure. UCLA, they're 85th in the country according to PFF with run blocking. They've gotten better since Neuheisel has taken over, but Indiana, they're graded 4th against the run. It's a really quick and aggressive defensive line with the Mikhail Kamaras of the world, the Mario Landinos of the world, the Kellen Wyatts of the world, and guys like that up front. It's hard to imagine that the run game for UCLA is going to get going. Anthony Frias last week, Jalen Berger, or even a returning Anthony Woods or Javion Thomas on the ground. It's tough. Indiana's had 42 explosive plays this season over 20-plus yards. That's 10th in the country. UCLA has given up 27 plays of 20-plus yards. That's 62nd in the country. Only Purdue, Michigan State, and Rutgers have given up more in the Big Ten. They got to find a way to keep these explosive plays in check. Plain and simple. That's what it's got to be. I don't know how much success that they're going to have stopping the run in this game. I just think they're just playing a different level of football against the Indiana Hoosiers in this game. Okay, it's time to predict some noon games. What do you say? Let's dive into it. Let's go back to Northwestern and Nebraska. I think the Wildcats are going to push back. I think that this is going to be an annoying type of challenge for Nebraska. I could see this game possibly being something like 17-13, early 4th, mid-4th. Maybe the fans are getting a little bit frustrated. Maybe Northwestern's got an opportunity, but they're struggling to get the pass game going a little bit. And then finally, the big play happens. Raiola hits somebody down the field. I've got the Huskers 24, Wildcats 13. For Indiana and UCLA, I think it's going to be domination by the Hoosiers. I think they're going to jump on them early in this matchup, traveling across the country, in front of what should be a raucous crowd out there in Bloomington. I expect the Indiana Hoosiers to dominate in this matchup. I've got them 45-17 over to UCLA, handing them the first loss of this Jerry Neuheisel play calling era, because UCLA did lose to Northwestern when Tim Skipper was in his first game as head coach. I mentioned offense, lots of it in the Purdue-Rutgers game. I've got 68 total points. I've got Purdue pulling the Vegas upset in this one. I'm going with the Boilermakers at home. Give me 38-30 Purdue. I think that they can run the ball better. I trust them more back there in the secondary just to make one more play in this game. So I said Purdue. They're going to get a Big Ten win, and I think this is as good as any going up against a poor defense at home against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights.